Hello horror hounds, welcome back to Poevember, the month of all things Edgar Allan Poe. In, as promised, the third video for the series, we're letting Mr. Vincent Price have a well-earned rest, and instead we're going to be looking at a film by a team normally known for their adaptations of H.P. Lovecraft, with The Reanimator, From Beyond and Dagon. But in the early 90s, director Stuart Gordon, with his script writer Dennis Powley, took on Poe and made The Pit and the Pendulum under the Full Moon imprint, the Charles Band Productions. I think it's generally considered to be a high watermark for Full Moon Productions. Maybe more of a curiosity for Stuart Gordon fans. I don't know why Oliver Reed and Jeffrey Combs get the billing on the front of this, because the movie essentially belongs to this gentleman here, Mr. Lance Henriksen, who plays Thomas de Torquemada, head of the Spanish Inquisition. What Powley has done for his script here is he's teased out the thread from Poe's short story, The Pit and the Pendulum, that the torture is at the hands of the Spanish Inquisition. Time and time again, what we'll see in this series will be filmmakers taking their cues mainly from Poe's work and expanding and building on that. This is absolutely no exception. And like many other Poe adaptations, there's a little nod, maybe about halfway through, to the Cask of Amontillado, and it brushes up close again, as most of them do, with the premature burial and the notions which are never far from Edgar Allan Poe's mind of being buried alive. But truthfully, the majority of this movie plays out more like a film like Mark of the Devil or Witchfinder General, films of those ilk, where you've got the powerless individual against the machine of the state, the church, the government. The opening scene of this film, from a script writing point of view, is very impressive. It very economically introduces us instantly to the world of the film. We're introduced to Torquemada and the Inquisition exhuming the corpse of a long dead nobleman to charge him and find him guilty of heresy and sentence him to 20 lashes. It's an amazing way to bring us right up to speed as quickly as possible with the mania, the twisted zealot logic behind the Inquisition, and the literal witch hunts that are going on, and at the same time with just a quick throwaway line as soon as the corpse has been found guilty of heresy, all of his land and fortunes, and naturally all of those that have been passed down to his living descendants, are now forfeit and have become the property of the church. So we see the religious zealotry, we see the mania, we see this edifice steamrolling over people straight away, and we also see behind that instantly the hypocrisy of it, and how the public face, the church defending you against the servants of Satan, hides truer, more earthbound motives of greed and more power, money and land. The machine of the Inquisition in this film is stacked against any opposition, and that's shown front and center. So if you're an ugly old crone, you're a witch. If you're a beautiful young woman, then you are beguiling the men, and you're a witch. If you happen to have any blemishes on your body, then they are the devil's mark, where Satan sucks, and if you're lucky enough to be completely blemish free, then during the interrogation you'll be pinched to leave a mark, and even though that mark is temporary and begins to fade almost instantly, that's a sign of you using your magic to make the mark disappear. This is a game that is stacked. It's a game that the little person against the state cannot ever hope to win. The state, and the church in this case, is never wrong. As I said a minute ago, there are lots of parallels with Mark of the Devil. If you want a more straightforward, biting criticism of those times, but also as a metaphor of the state versus the individual, misogyny, any other metaphor you want to use, Mark of the Devil is a better work. The Pit and the Pendulum is slighter than Mark of the Devil. As with Stuart Gordon's H.P. Lovecraft movies, it's shot through more with dark humour. It's lighter. There's less gore in this than there is in Mark of the Devil, even though it does touch an awful lot of the same bases. Not just individuals against the monolithic state and the hypocrisy of that institution. There's scenes pointing out the futility of extracting information by torture and the inherent hypocrisy of that. There are scenes pointing out the hypocrisy of those performing the torture. Ultimately, the church message is a facade for the fact that they really quite enjoy it. More specifically, there's scenes of tongues being removed in both films, and a specific point made in both films that the head witchfinders, the Grand Inquisitor or the Witchfinder in Mark of the Devil, are actually physically impotent, which is a sort of seed of their rage against women, especially women that stir sexual thoughts in them. I would be amazed if Dennis Powley didn't have Mark of the Devil in mind when he was more than Poe when he was writing this screenplay. What Pit and the Pendulum has over Mark of the Devil is access to all of that Catholic iconography, especially all tied in with the character of Torquemada, who, after having carnal thoughts about the female protagonist of the movie, asks his head torturer to flay him whilst he's kneeling in front of an icon of the Virgin Mary, and whilst he's being whipped, he has sort of visions of Maria, the woman he's charged with witchcraft, who has bewitched him, sees visions of her as the Virgin Mary, and later on in the film, when he attempts to rape her, he makes her dress up as the Virgin Mary. So this thorny, knotty sort of Catholic, and I was born and raised Catholic, so I know whereof I speak, this iconography of bleeding bodies and bleeding hearts on fire, and crucifixions and crowns of thorns and the like, and the Stations of the Cross and all things like this are all tied in with notions of sex and guilt and repression and pain and pleasure, and it's all there in this film, almost in a weirdly proto-Cenobite fashion. I can without doing too much work, draw a line from the Catholic Church and some of their saintly ecstasies, some of their texts, through to this, all the way through to Clive Barker's Cenobites, who in their own weird way are priestly and monk-like and exist in that extreme region of pleasure, pain, guilt, innocence, and desire. We're getting into muddy waters and further away from the Pit and the Pendulum now. So let's pull it back. Lance Henriksen gives one of the performances of his career in this. No question. He's menacing, haunting, haunted, scary, weak, conflicted, consumed with guilt, doubt, desire, rage. Cast opposite him, and the perfect foil to him, is Rona de Ricci as Maria, the innocent baker and devout Christian and innocent, purely innocent, accused of witchcraft, who plays opposite him. I had to read her name because this really is her only role, which is amazingly surprising. She gives a wonderful performance, and those two really work off each other well, and they have quite a few scenes together. As counterbalances, they push the movie through. It's a fault of the script and not Henriksen's that towards the end things get a little messy, and he does seem to spend quite a consecutive number of scenes sort of hissing and exiting stage left from the scene with his robes flying behind him. There's a lot of running around at the very end, and I can only imagine that was down to time and the fact that part of the script could possibly have done with more. At the ending of the film, even though it's building towards Maria's husband being strapped down into the pendulum after avoiding the pit, the actual point of the film, the Pit and the Pendulum, even though it doesn't, it feels like that just kind of happens, and a lot of things in order seem to just happen at the end to get us to the end of the film. It gets a little bit, as I say, messy and threadbare at the end. Honourable mentions for performances: Frances Bay as Esmeralda, the old woman imprisoned by the Inquisition, ironically actually a witch, is a real standout. She's a hoot in it. She's an absolute hoot. You will have seen her in David Lynch films, Blue Velvet, Wild at Heart, and Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. But you might also remember her from In the Mouth of Madness, John Carpenter's film. She actually plays the owner of the bed and breakfast at Hobbs End, who keeps her husband close by, for anyone who's seen that film. Also, Jeffrey Combs, who plays the sort of mid-level management of the Inquisition, one of these ordinary bods who are just in it for the job rather than the faith of it. And of course, Oliver Reed, who makes a sort of glorified cameo as a cardinal sent from the Pope in a little detour in the film that takes its time to tip its hat to Poe's cask of Amontillado. It's a fun film. It's maybe a tad too long. It could have done with shaving 5 or 10 minutes off. But what we will do is we will go from this, which bears honestly little resemblance to Poe as we know it, to, where is he? We'll go straight from that to its namesake, The Pit and the Pendulum by Roger Corman with Vincent Price, which to my shame, until a couple of minutes ago, I had never seen. But I will talk about this Pit and the Pendulum in my next video for Povember. Spoiler alert,